When you picture war, what comes to mind?
Yeah.
Probably soldiers, right? On a battlefield. Well, the book we're looking at today, it completely flips that image. It gives this really harsh modern reality.
Yeah.
It says that since the 21st century started, something like 80% of war victims, 80% have been civilians.
Wow. That's staggering.
It is. And it even puts forward this, well, unsettling idea that today the soldiers are almost the collateral victims.
Right. It forces you to look at conflict and, well, so much more through a really different lens, doesn't it?
It really does.
And this book, it's not just a memoir. It's a really profound reflection on getting through suffering, finding hope, sometimes in really unexpected ways, understanding human nature, faith, all seen through this really unique life.
Absolutely. It's so personal, packed with stories, experiences. It feels like it's not just one person's map, but maybe gives us some guidance for navigating our own times, our own challenges.
Yeah, definitely. So our aim here is to really get into those key experiences, those powerful ideas from the book, unpack what makes them hit home, and what useful takeaways there might be for you.
And, as we go through this together, you might find yourself wanting to sit with some of these ideas a bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to mention our YouTube channel, Mindful Moments. It actually uses AI to analyze books just like this one.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really designed to, spark more reflection, get you thinking critically. Just another way to keep exploring these themes.
That sounds like a great resource, actually. Helps things sink in.
Exactly. So, okay, let's start with a theme that runs really deep in the book. Migration. That whole tough journey and the hope behind it.
The book paints this incredibly vivid picture, sometimes just heartbreaking, of what it was like for immigrants back in the early 20th century.
Right.
It talks about the absolute horror of some of those journeys across the Atlantic. It mentions specific tragedies like the SS Mafalda, the SS Sirio. Hundreds of Italian migrants lost their lives.
And it wasn't just the big disasters, was it? The everyday conditions described on some ships were just horrific.
Exactly. The book brings up the SS Matteo Bruzzo, the SS Carlo Raggio.
Uh-huh.
People died of hunger, of just deprivation. 50 people on those two alone.
Unbelievable.
Then there was the SS Kriska, passengers suffocated. The SS Remo, apparently they sold double the tickets it could hold. Cholera broke out. They just threw the dead overboard.
It's almost, you can barely imagine that kind of suffering. It really shows the desperation, doesn't it?
It really does. What drove people to leave everything for just the promise of something better? The book talks about these emigration agents.
Yes.
Who went around villages painting this picture of a promised land, some kind of wonderland. They used pamphlets, even fake letters, apparently.
Fake letters, wow. The book actually compares them to slave traders, doesn't it?
It does. And when you think about the deception, the human cost, it feels, tragically spot on. All for that dream of l'America.
That powerful idea of a better future somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. And the book ties this history right into the author's own family story. His grandparents coming from Italy to Argentina, facing, terrible heat, hardship, starting totally from scratch, but driven by that exact same hope.
Seeking that new beginning, yeah. Enduring things we can hardly imagine. Makes you think about the strength, the resilience people find when they're driven by hope.
It does.
And the book has this interesting take on nostalgia, too, in this context. It's not just, looking back, sadly.
No, that's right. It presents nostalgia for your roots as, healthy, vital even.
Yeah.
It quotes an Argentine poet, Francisco Luis Bernardes, who said something like, all that has blossomed on the tree lives on that which holds it underground.
Lives on that which holds it underground. That's beautiful. So the roots, the past, they don't hold you back. They actually nourish you.
Exactly. They give you strength to move forward, to bear fruit, even in new ground. It sort of flips nostalgia from being a weakness into a source of power.
I like that. A foundation that helps you face challenges, build something new.
Mm-hmm. And that idea of building something new, finding community, resilience, it comes through so well in the next part of the book, when it takes us to the Flores barrio in Buenos Aires, where the author grew up.
Oh, the barrio. Yeah, the book describes it so vividly. Simple, vibrant, full of human connection, low buildings, peace, quiet, and this incredible trust. People sleeping with doors unlocked.
It really creates this strong sense of place, doesn't it? A community built on just being close, relying on each other. And the anecdotes are great, playing soccer in the dirt square with a ball made of rags.
Small chuckle, the classic rag ball, simple joy.
And that brilliant story about the Charlie Chaplin umbrella jump off the terrace. Just pure childhood nerve.
Ah, yes.
And the book adds that detail. You know, the risk had consequences. A few extra bumps from the parents when they got home. A snapshot of life where actions, well, they mattered immediately.
A gentle reminder of cause and effect. But it wasn't just games, was it? The stories show this amazing openness, this acceptance of all sorts of different lives coexisting.
They really do. The book mentions knowing the hairdresser, Margot, and knowing her sister was a prostitute. Even meeting other sex workers, La Siche, La Paroda, and just being aware of the prison world because they bought brushes made by inmates. It sounds like a place where the lines were just blurrier. People were seen as people.
Yeah, less judgment, maybe. A broader sense of, okay, this is all part of human life happening here. And certain individuals really stand out in the book's telling.
Oh, absolutely crucial influences. His grandmother, Nona Rosa, she's described with such tenderness. The book calls it her common holiness, like this deep, practical faith. She faced suffering with real courage, taught him patience, perseverance.
Common holiness. I like that. Finding the sacred in just ordinary, strong, everyday life.
She was his first teacher, really, in life and faith. Rooted his religiosity, even though she hadn't had much schooling herself. And then there's Chetta Maria Minuto, another amazing figure.
Right, the Sicilian widow.
Energetic, shrewd, the book says, a huge help to his mother. She'd share her own stories of war hardship. And what's really touching is how they reconnected later. The book uses it to talk about forgiveness, finding dignity, and caring for others. Conchetta, in that later stage, is described as a modern-day Magdalene.
A modern-day Magdalene. Wow, that's a powerful image. Redemption, dignity through service. And Father Enrique Pozzoli, he was important too.
His kindness was key at a tough time. He helped the author's grandparents get a loan for their old grocery shop when they'd lost everything, and later he was supportive when the author felt his own calling, his vocation.
So all these different people from different walks of life, leaving these deep marks, it makes you pause, doesn't it? It makes you think about how we see people in our own communities, especially those maybe on the edges or going through tough times.
It definitely raises that question about the connections we make, the potential for compassion in our own lives. And this grounding, this foundation, the barrio, it sort of led to this really pivotal moment for the author, encountering his calling.
Yes, that specific date, September 21st, 1953. Feast of St. Matthew. The book describes this incredibly powerful feeling, a life-changing moment in the confessional. Set him on a completely new path.
Which led him to the seminary. A life of, as the book calls it, full immersion.
Full immersion, yeah.
Intense study, prayer, community life, sports, even being responsible for younger students. A whole world focused on formation.
Sounds intense, like a crucible, really. And the book is quite open about the struggles, the difficult lessons from that time, too.
Yeah, like the story about borrowing a bicycle without asking. And the guilt that stayed with him because it caused the other boy's mother financial trouble. Seems small, maybe, but it taught him about the weight of his actions.
Right, the impact on others.
And that really tragic story, the boy from school who killed his mother, that forced him really young to face the reality of just darkness, brokenness in the world.
Incredibly heavy things for those formative years. And then there was his own serious illness, the lung problem, the surgery, removing part of a lung.
Yeah, a time of major physical pain, a really tough recovery. But what's interesting is how that suffering connected with his spiritual journey. The book mentions Sister Dolores telling him he was imitating Jesus.
And imitating Jesus.
That simple phrase apparently gave him a whole different way to understand the suffering. Not just pain to get through, but maybe something redemptive, something connecting him to a bigger story.
That must have been a profound shift in perspective, especially when you're going through something like that. These personal struggles and finding meaning in them, they seem really tied to the bigger themes in the book about vocation, serving the poor, the marginalized.
Absolutely. The book makes that link explicit to the Gospels, Jesus' mission to the poor in Luke, identifying with the least of these in Matthew.
Yeah.
It wasn't just theory for him. It was grounded in his own life, the people he knew.
Right.
And the book is also honest about the pain caused by abuse within the church. It acknowledges that suffering isn't always redemptive. Sometimes it's just profound damage. It quotes, "If one part suffers, all parts suffer." That sense of a collective wound.
That's important, acknowledging the betrayal, the suffering, even within an institution meant for healing. And dealing with that kind of pain, personal or institutional, it takes incredible resilience, which is another big theme the book explores.
It gives some really powerful examples of resilience, of hope, like the miracle of the Andes survivors.
Ah, the Uruguayan rugby team. Their plane crash in the mountains. The book talks about those 72 days, their organization, the brotherhood, supporting each other, prayer, and the incredibly hard choices they made just to survive. It's shown as this amazing example of the human spirit creating a society under impossible pressure.
It's an extraordinary story, and the author reflects on his own path, too, through crises, emptiness, sin, saying he sees himself as fundamentally a man who's been forgiven.
That phrase suggests, acknowledging failure but finding a way back. The book connects this to an unusual idea, the gift of shame.
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But the idea is there's a healthy shame. It lets you remember and be ashamed of failings, which leads to humility, feeling unworthy of public praise. It's different from destructive guilt. It's actually presented as a source of grounding, of strength.
Shame is a gift. That really makes you stop and think. It's so different from how we usually see it, but it links directly to the book's idea of hope, which is also quite unique.
It does. Hope here isn't just optimism. Optimism, the book suggests, can be easily crushed by circumstances. Hope, especially for someone with faith, is deeper. Rooted in something outside yourself, something unwavering. It's described as humble but strong, like a helmet against fear and despair, referencing that armor of God idea in 1 Thessalonians.
The helmet of hope, protecting you against the weight of everything. And it makes me think of that Martin Luther King Jr. quote the book mentions about planting a tree even if the world ends tomorrow. That feels like this kind of active, resilient hope.
Exactly. It's not passive waiting. It's engaging with the future, even when it's uncertain. And this hope is set against the dangers of despair, melancholy, resentment, what the book calls the pleasure of non-pleasure.
The pleasure of non-pleasure.
Yeah, like getting stuck in suffering, almost enjoying the misery. Wisdom, the book says, belongs to those who can fall, learn, get up again, and just embrace life.
Getting up again, embracing life. It's a call to keep participating in your own story, even after setbacks. And talking about big setbacks, this brings us back to those global challenges, like the reality of war we started with.
Right, back to that opening point. The book hammers home that war is just folly, a useless massacre, a criminal lack of reason. And it bases this not on theory, but on that devastating modern fact. Civilians are the main victims now.
And it connects this directly to what it calls the globalization of indifference.
Yes. This indifference is like the climate that lets atrocities thrive. It echoes Cain's question to God, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The book argues that when we become indifferent, forget we're all one human family, we become these sort of unnamed culprits, contributing to suffering without taking any real responsibility.
And that indifference links directly, horrifically, to making weapons. The book points out how producing and selling weapons is tied up with refusing the refugees created by the conflicts those same weapons fuel.
Weapons are called a thermometer of injustice in the book. They measure the injustice and they make it worse. It's a really strong argument for how interconnected everything is.
All is related, all is connected. That phrase, you hear it elsewhere too, but it feels powerfully reinforced by things like the pandemic, right?
Absolutely. The pandemic really showed how dependent we are on each other globally. And it exposed the big flaws in what the book calls an economy that kills.
An economy that kills, meaning
An economy that excludes people, that starves them, pollutes the planet, fuels conflict. It's presented as not just inefficient, but fundamentally wrong, perverse.
And this connected world, this changing economy, is now facing this massive technological shift. Artificial intelligence.
Right. The book discusses AI not just as another tool, but as a genuine cognitive industrial revolution. AI that could potentially make its own choices. And this is framed as a fundamental challenge to, well, what it means to be human.
Sounds almost sci-fi, but the book treats it as a real present danger we need to deal with. It brings in the thinker Romano Guardini, who believed that these huge technical, social, political problems, they can only really be solved by a new kind of humanity, one with deeper spirituality, more interior life.
And the core question the book then asks for our time is really striking. Will humans become food for algorithms, basically defined and controlled by tech? Or can we preserve what makes us distinctively human, recover what the book calls the heart?
Food for algorithms. That's a chilling phrase. The book insists, though, that no algorithm, no matter how smart, can replicate real human experience. Childhood memories, poetry, love. These things are essential to our humanity, it argues. The heart is that core of our personal journey, our ability to truly connect, to feel something deeper.
It's a call to protect that human core as technology races ahead. And the book also warns about internal threats to this heart, specifically something it calls spiritual worldliness.
Described as the most perfidious temptation, worse potentially than other historical evils, often looking like hypocrisy.
Exactly. The book gives this example, judging personal sins, maybe sins of the flesh, much more harshly than what it sees as potentially more serious sins, exploitation, injustice, destroying the environment, sins that are easier to hide or justify. It forces you to rethink what really counts as a moral failure.
That's a challenging mirror to hold up, for sure. And the book also distinguishes carefully between real tradition and what it calls traditionalism.
Right. Traditionalism is painted as backwardism, rigid, fearful clinging to the past like worshipping ashes. But true tradition, inspired by Mahler apparently, is about preserving the fire. It's a living root that lets new fruit grow. Rigidity, the book suggests, often points to some deeper imbalance or personal problem.
Tradition is fire, not ashes. Dynamic, looking forward. And the vision of a synodal church in the book seems to fit that, a living tradition, a shared journey.
Absolutely. It's about walking together, listening to the Spirit, where good shepherds are with their people, sometimes out front, sometimes in the middle, sometimes even following behind, because, as the book puts it, the people have a kind of nose for finding new paths. It stresses connection, shared discernment over just top-down rules.
A journeying people, and that journey needs certain human qualities, right? Like education, joy, tenderness. The book highlights those too.
Yeah, education is presented as this fundamental act of hope, always looking to the future. A two-way street of learning. It quotes Zygmunt Bellman. If you're thinking about the next 100 years, educate.
If you are thinking about the next 100 years, educate. Wow, that really elevates teaching and learning. The book mentions 3 key languages of education: mind, heart, and hands.
Thinking, feeling, doing, all working together. There's that lovely anecdote about the blind child who could see with his hands. It just shows the intelligence in doing things, in concrete experience.
Underscores learning by doing, engaging with the world physically, not just, as the book warns, balconer la vida, watching life from a balcony, or maybe nowadays, from behind a screen.
Exactly. Avoiding detachment. And finally, the book stresses how vital joy, humor, and play are. Homo ludens, man the player. Qualities often learned young in the family.
Joy as a tool, really, for facing difficulties, avoiding getting rigid or narcissistic. The book mentions family moments where laughter helped them through hard times.
And tenderness. Often seen as weakness, but the book presents it powerfully as a true strength. The path of the strongest, actually.
Tenderness as a strength. Another one of those beautiful countercultural ideas from this book. Wow, we've really covered a lot of ground. From migration and war to AI's challenges, all through this one incredible life story.
It gives you a powerful lens for looking at the human condition, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And the importance of hope, community, that idea of the heart.
Definitely. And as you, the listener, keep thinking about all this, remember that exploring complex ideas is often just the start. We'd encourage you again to check out Mindful Moments on our YouTube channel for more AI-assisted analysis and thinking prompts. And of course, have a look at our other podcasts for similar explorations.
Yeah, hopefully those resources can help you continue your own journey of reflection.
Absolutely. So as you reflect on these stories, these insights from the migrants' resilience to the challenge of staying human with algorithms all around us, maybe consider this. In a world that often feels indifferent, changing so fast, what's one concrete way you can cultivate or defend the heart, that core of human experience, connection in your own life, in your own community?
That's a question that really stays with you.
It does. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the book. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to our channel or podcast feed so you don't miss what's next.
And share it with someone who you think might appreciate these ideas.
Right. And if you want to read the book yourself, there's a link to purchase it in the show notes.
But most importantly, keep thinking critically, keep engaging with the world, and keep looking for and nurturing hope.
Until next time.